Do you feel any like whiplash or tension when you're going from like releasing a song with Kylie Minogue to playing cool underground clubs in the US like Smart Bar? Or is it like, how does that feel for you? I feel like you exist in two planes.
Yeah, but like, I don't know. I just try not to think about it. Like,
is there actual like are there people that say something about that?
I think mainly it confuses people.
I mean, dance music people are obsessed with like underground versus overground and making rules and categories. You know.
I think there's kind of two kinds of people. There are people who talk about what people who make music are doing, and people who make music.
People love to fetishize the past, and we'll talk about certain classics from the 90s that at the time were cheesy. And they'll be like, oh, we don't hear shit like this anymore. And you're like, that record was like a radio record. What's the difference between that and, you know, today's version of that?
Well, and also, look, those early house music guys, they were trying way harder to be famous than I have ever tried in my entire life. Yeah. Those dudes had glossy headshots and were making...
I love DJ headshots. I love DJ press shots.
Oh, go watch the video for Love Can't Turn Around and then call me a sellout. I don't want to hear a goddamn thing out of anybody. I mean, those guys, they wanted... The prevailing wisdom was that house music was going to be pop, and not for nothing, it was.
Yeah.
There's a lot of mythology about the history of house, like it was some like queer utopia, which of course sometimes that was true, but also a lot of those early first wave dudes are just the biggest religious homophobes and always have been since the dawn of time, and they just put up with being around gay people so that they could go to house clubs and make house records. Like I don't want to get into it, but like as somebody who has worked in this city for a long time, I can tell you that some of the most racist and misogynistic and sexist and homophobic people that I have ever met in my life are like legendary first generation house dudes.
For sure. And we've all seen in recent years the weird sort of culture clash that happened when some younger generations of sort of naive, like safe space European platforms try to bring some of those DJs out there and are outraged when they see what's on their Instagram.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
We'll leave it at that.
Y'all have to leave DJ Assault alone. He's a good boy. You let him live.
I think a lot of people look at the US and like, you know, some of these legendary artists from a certain era, look at it from the outside and sort of idealize or oversimplify or just try to like transpose what their beliefs are onto someone else's life from another era, and don't realize that growing up in America at a certain era was complicated, and a lot of people were not educated and dealing with all kinds of generational clashes and shit like that. And
also, you're not going to tell me what Jamie Principle meant when he said whatever, because Jamie's my friend.
Right.
Like I don't want to hear a goddamn thing about it. Like you're not going to tell me what was meant by whatever, because those guys, I know them, and they're either good dudes or they're not good dudes, but
some of them are not, and
some of them are complete.
You can't idealize it.
You can't. Oh my God! Some of the worst people I ever met in my life are house music DJs. Like genuinely, some of the like, and that's fine. I mean, like, I want places to be safer. Like, I don't want anybody to go through some of the shit that I went through. Like, there were some things that I would like to not have happen again to anyone. And then on the other hand, part of what is good about music in general is risk and danger. And at the point that you completely bleach that out of it, I find it to not only be boring, but maybe not even good for people.
Yeah.
People getting mad at DJ Assault for like not having like whatever their idea of like how you're supposed to talk about women. My guy's biggest record is called Ass and Titties.
Like, yeah, right.
Right?
Cognitive dissonance. Like, what are we talking about
Like,
here?
what are we talking about here? And also, it's one of the best records ever made, and he's one of the sweetest dudes in the world. Yeah. I don't want to live in a world where you can't make a record like Ass and Titties. You know, stankin' ass bitches need to wash up. Yes, they fucking do. I'm stankin' ass bitches. Like that's me. Like I'm not like let's just be honest here. There's this weird thing that has happened, and I think a lot of it really does come from this like European viewing back at America, like we love this thing, but we want it to be this thing, and it's mainly just a thing to talk about on the internet.
Right.
Like it doesn't have any bearing on the real world, because the real talk is that if I, in this club tonight, play Beat That Bitch with a Bat, nobody's gonna get hit with a bat.
No.
Everybody's
gonna
gonna
go from a bat. They're gonna sing along to the right
They're gonna
parts.
sing along to the right parts. It's not a real bat.
Yeah.
Nobody's saying beat that bitch with a bat. You know, like that's not what it is. And so there's a kind of intellectual dishonesty that is more about scoring some kind of imaginary points on Twitter that don't even have, even that doesn't last. Eventually those people like go away and do whatever, and then we're still sitting here playing Beat That Bitch with a Bat.
That sort of tension and friction, or just even those differences between the scene in Europe and in North America, that's something that I do still find interesting too, because at the same time, DJing in Europe, I mean, I at least speaking for myself, I can say that even just in recent years, there's something extremely fulfilling in DJing for a crowd of people who have been brought up on dance music and who've been going out since they were 14, 15. You know, so if you're playing for a 22-year-old in Europe, they've been going out since they were 14. If you're playing for a 22-year-old in America, they've been going out for 1 year. Yeah. So just the knowledge of music that they have is different. And like for so many years, youth music in Europe was club music, dance music, whereas in North America, youth music for the 2000s and 2010s was mostly hip hop and like MTV rock or whatever. So there's just like, your basic punter in Europe knows so many deep cuts that playing there is super fulfilling.
Oh yeah, you'll hear people also go, my parents love you too.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And I'm like, shut the fuck up, kid.
Yeah,
like, how old are your parents?
Right.
I don't want to hear this. Like, what are your parents, 35?
Yeah.
Like, shut up, kid.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, that's a nice thing. And also, like in Europe, like dance music is on the radio.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like on the real radio, not on like, you know,
no, on the real radio. You're right.
Yeah, like on like, yeah. It is an interesting thing though, because we are at this weird period right now that for me most closely reminds me of like 1990, in that there's this weird kind of underground crossing into the mainstream thing.
Yeah.
In dance music, like.
Aren't you doing that?
What's that?
Aren't you doing that?
Absolutely. What are you talking about? I got like 3 songs on the radio in Europe. The checks are clearing, baby.
We love to see it.
I fucking got gold records falling out my butt. Like it's tight. But you know, and then on the other hand, like I'm not like the Kylie Minogue record. Like I wrote that like 3 years before. I didn't even know she was gonna be on it.
Right.
Like I wrote it about doing drugs and Panorama Bar, like literally that's what it's about.
But you know what I love, by the way, because you sent me your album a couple weeks ago or whenever that was, like a month ago, and I had heard some of the singles at that point, and you know this is a major label album, and this is an album that has songs that can play on the radio. But I love that it starts with this like soul wax ass cut up shit where I'm like, oh cool, all right, yes, I'm in, you know?
Yeah.
Like that first song to me was a great statement. It's a great opener where I'm like, cool, all right, this is gonna be this is an album that's gonna work on many levels. I'm in. Yeah.
The only note that I got when I handed him the album was that maybe we should put that part in the middle so that we wouldn't scare people.
With the first one?
Yeah.
Oh no.
And I said, yeah sure. Oh, that's great.
Right,
No,
I'll try
it, and then I just sent it to mastering without asking. Right. I didn't change a goddamn thing.
Yeah.
I have been operating on the premise that they're never going to let me do this twice.
Right. So you're like, let me just get this through the system.
I'm like, oh yeah, that's an excellent idea. I mean, it was a good note. Like I understand the logic behind it. Mm-hmm. That said, no.